There is a kind of person you have almost certainly met without noticing. Not because he is hard to find, but because he does everything in his power not to be found. He is the man who declines the invitation he secretly aches to accept, who says no, thank you, to the very thing he wants most in the world, who watches a party through the window, his face nearly pressed to the glass, and then draws the curtain and sits alone in his room, his chest heavy with a longing he will confess to no one. I have chosen, for today's episode, an image that has stayed with me for years of working with such people. The image of a life watched from behind glass. Not out of indifference, this matters enormously, but out of a fear so deep, so old, that it has become a way of existing. The man behind the glass sees the light, sees the people, sees the warmth. And he wants all of it. But between him and it stands a pain he cannot break, because that glass is made of dread. And if, hearing this, you felt a small knot in your chest, because it sounds familiar, whether about you or someone dear, stay to the end. This glass has a history, it has a name, and contrary to what those who live behind it believe, it also has a way out. I'll call him Adrian. He is 32, and he has a talent that could open any door. He is a designer, a very good one, the kind colleagues describe with genuine admiration as having the hand of an artist. He works from home, exclusively. Not because the job demands it, but because the thought of walking into a room full of people who might look at him tightens his stomach a full day in advance. A year ago, he was offered a promotion. Team lead. More money, recognition, precisely the work he had prepared years for. He turned it down. The reason he gave was that he prefers the technical side, doesn't enjoy managing. The real reason, which he told no one, was that the idea of standing before a team, speaking, being watched, being able to fail in front of everyone, felt to him, quite literally, unbearable. He chose to remain invisible. And he called that choice a preference. There is a colleague he cares for. Let's call her Julia. For 3 years he has exchanged work messages with her that, if you read them, would seem cool and professional, but which sometimes take him an hour to compose, weighing each word for fear of seeming foolish. For 3 years he has rehearsed conversations in his mind that he will never have. He has imagined, in the smallest detail, what a coffee together would be like. And precisely because he has imagined it so vividly, reality seems all the more impossible. Adrian is living an entire love story, with a beginning, a middle, and an end, in which the other person doesn't know they are a character. In the evenings, Adrian sits down and, in his mind, he is someone. He is charming, he is brave, he says the right things, he is loved. He has an inner life of a richness few would suspect. The trouble is that all this richness stays locked inside, like a splendid garden behind a wall with no gate. And in the morning he wakes as the same Adrian as before, the one who doesn't answer the phone to an unknown number, who crosses the street to avoid greeting an acquaintance, who declined 3 weddings and 2 birthdays this year with excuses prepared in advance. You might be asking now, but isn't this just shyness? Isn't he simply an introvert who prefers quiet? The question is excellent, and its answer marks the line between a trait of character and a suffering that needs help. What Adrian lives has a name in clinical psychology: avoidant personality disorder. It belongs to a family of conditions the manuals call the anxious cluster, people whom fear, in one form or another, leads through life. But here is the trap almost everyone falls into. Avoidant personality disorder is not shyness. It is not introversion. It is not a person's healthy preference for quiet and small circles. The difference rests on a single word, and that word is suffering. An introvert withdraws and feels well. He recharges in solitude, like a battery on a charger. Adrian withdraws and suffers. He withdraws from the very place where he longs, with his whole being, to be. He does not flee people because he doesn't want them. He flees because he wants them so badly that the thought of being rejected by them feels like a small death. To show you how precise this condition is, here are some of the signs specialists look for. The person avoids work or activities involving close contact with others, for fear of criticism or rejection. Refuses to grow close to anyone without absolute certainty of being liked. And since that certainty never exists, grows close very rarely. Sees themselves as inferior, uninteresting, somehow defective compared to others. Is constantly preoccupied with the thought of being judged. And avoids any risk, any novelty, any situation in which they might be embarrassed, even at the cost of giving up things they want enormously. If you gather these signs, a painfully coherent portrait emerges. not of a person who needs no one, but of a person who needs everyone and decided somewhere long ago that it is safer to ask for nothing, so as to be refused nothing. That it is better to lose from the start than to lose after having hoped. It is the sad arithmetic of the avoidant. If I don't reach out my hand, no one can reject it. And now we arrive at what ties today's episode to the last one, on paranoid personality disorder. Because, strange as it may seem, the paranoid and the avoidant are brothers. Brothers from the same wound. One simply ran in one direction, and the other in the opposite one. More than 70 years ago, a psychoanalyst named Karen Horney observed something that remains, to this day, one of the most luminous ideas in all of psychology. She said that when a person carries within them a deep anxiety toward others, a basic insecurity, as she called it, they can react in three fundamental ways. They can move against people. They can move away from people. Or they can move toward people. Moving against people is the strategy of the one who strikes first. If the world is dangerous, if others mean to hurt me, then I defend myself by hitting first. I become suspicious, vigilant, ready to retaliate. Here, if you were with me last episode, you recognize the paranoid. The man who sees attacks everywhere and armors himself in hostility. Moving away from people is the other face of the same coin. It is the strategy of the one who disappears first. If the world is dangerous, if others can hurt me, then I defend myself by becoming invisible. I don't attack, I withdraw. I don't retaliate, I am absent. And here you recognize Adrian, the avoidant, the man who, so as not to be hurt, chooses not to be present. Consider for a moment what this means. The paranoid and the avoidant suffer from exactly the same disease of the soul, an unbearable sensitivity to what others think of them, a deep conviction that if they expose themselves, they will be struck. The wound is identical, but the paranoid makes noise, and the avoidant makes silence. The paranoid leaps into your view, the avoidant slips through your fingers. One defends with thorns, the other with absence. And precisely because the avoidant defends himself by vanishing, his condition is far harder to see, which is why it so often goes undiagnosed for years and years. There is also Horney's third movement, toward people, the one who defends himself by clinging, by making himself indispensable, by erasing himself in order to be accepted. But of him, the dependent, we will speak in a future episode. For now, keep the image of the three roads that start from the same place of dread. One that attacks, one that flees, one that clings. Three solutions to the same fear of being hurt by others. But where does this wound come from? Why does a child come to learn that the safest thing in the world is not to be seen? No one is born hiding. Children, in their vast majority, come into the world with a natural hunger to be seen, to be admired, to show what they can do. "Look, Mum," is one of the first sentences we speak. The man behind the glass once said, "Look, Mum," too. The question is what he received back. Research shows us two threads that, woven together, make this condition. The first thread is temperament. Some children are born more cautious, more sensitive to everything new, more inclined to draw back before the unfamiliar. It is an inborn trait, visible from the earliest years. No one's fault, simply the way their nervous system is built. Such a child is more vulnerable. But vulnerable does not mean condemned. Temperament is only the soil. For the condition to grow from it, something more is needed. The second thread is experience. And here is the hard part. The child who will become avoidant is, very often, a child who reached out a hand and was rejected, who showed what they could do and was laughed at, who was criticized often, humiliated, unfavorably compared, made to feel somehow less than they should be. Sometimes it comes from the family, a cold parent, forever dissatisfied, who corrects but does not embrace. Sometimes from the group of children, the mockery at school, the exclusion, the nickname that sticks and hurts for years. Most often from both. And so the child learns a lesson, a logical lesson, from their point of view. They learn that showing yourself is dangerous. That each time you expose yourself, pain follows. And like any intelligent being who wants to survive, they draw the saving conclusion. If I don't show myself, I cannot be hurt. They retreat behind the glass not in order to suffer, but, on the contrary, in order to suffer no more. The glass, at first, is a protection. The trouble is that, over time, the protection becomes a prison. And the child who hid so as not to be struck becomes an adult who hides even from all that is good and warm and alive in the world. At the core of this condition sits a feeling specialists call shame. Not the passing shame we all feel when we err, but a shame that has fused with identity. the conviction deeply lodged that it is not about what they do, but about what they are. That somewhere in their intimate structure, they are defective, unworthy, and whoever believes themselves defective at the core of their being will do anything, to ensure others never come to see that defect, including giving up love, career, friendship, life itself, only so that the defect they are convinced exists remains unseen. You might believe, hearing all this, that such a person is condemned to live forever behind the glass. But here you would be wrong. To truly understand avoidant personality disorder, it is just as important to understand what it is not, because it is often confused with other things, and that confusion sometimes delays help by years. It is not introversion. I've said it, but it bears repeating because it is the most frequent confusion. The introvert does not suffer. The avoidant suffers. That is the whole difference in the world. But there is a far more important confusion, one that changes everything. The difference between the avoidant and the schizoid. On the surface, the two look identical. Both alone, both withdrawn, both without a visible social life. But inside they are exact opposites. The schizoid is alone because that is how he likes it. He genuinely feels no need for others, does not long, misses nothing. His withdrawal is peaceful, reconciled. The avoidant is alone in spite of a burning desire not to be. His withdrawal is heartbreaking. If you could read his mind, you would hear a cry. I want to be there, I want it so much, but I can't. The schizoid drew the curtain and forgot the party. The avoidant stands with his face pressed to the glass and watches it with longing. The same room, two entirely different souls. It is also confused with a close relative, social anxiety. And here the overlap is real, so real that specialists still debate where one ends and the other begins. Simplifying greatly, social anxiety is more tied to situations, the fear of public speaking, of an exam, of a particular circumstance. Avoidant personality disorder is deeper. It touches the very way a person sees themselves. It is not merely, I fear this situation, but I am a person who does not deserve to be there. And now, the news for which I wanted you to walk the whole way here. Avoidant personality disorder is one of the most treatable conditions there is. And the reason is beautiful, almost poetic. Do you remember its core? The desire for connection. The avoidant wants with all his heart. And in therapy, desire is everything. It is the fuel. Unlike other conditions where the person doesn't even feel the need to change, here the motivation to draw close to others already exists, alive, burning beneath the ash of fear. The therapist does not have to light it. They only have to help sweep the ash aside. How does the glass break? Slowly and with gentleness. Through psychotherapy, the most effective path. One works step by step on graduated exposure. Small, safe, measured social situations that show the brain, through direct experience, that reaching out a hand is not automatically followed by pain. One works on the underlying shame, on the conviction of being defective, dismantling it brick by brick. And here is a splendid paradox. One of the best forms of therapy for the avoidant is group therapy. Yes, precisely the place he fears most. Because the therapeutic group becomes a safe training ground, a place where he can practice being seen without being hurt, perhaps for the first time in his life. Medication can help, but only when a depression or anxiety is layered over the underlying condition. It calms the storm, but the real work is done by a living relationship with a person who does not reject you. I want to tell you a few simple things, directly, as to a friend. If you recognized yourself in Adrian, if you felt that I was describing the glass from behind, which you watch your own life, listen closely, because what follows matters. The first thing, the longing you carry is not a weakness. It is proof. The fact that you ache for closeness, for friendship, for love, even as you fear them, means you are built for connection. A truly cold person would feel nothing. You feel everything. Too much, perhaps. And that capacity to feel, which now hurts you, is exactly the material from which the warmest bonds are made. Nothing essential is missing in you. You simply have a fear that has settled over something very beautiful. The second thing, the conviction that you are somehow defective, inferior, unworthy, is an old lie. It is a lesson you learned long ago, from people or circumstances that were wrong. You believed it because you were small and had no way to defend yourself against it. But it is not the truth about you. It is only a scar that speaks. And scars, however much they hurt, do not define us. The third thing, and the most important, the glass can break. Not all at once, not through heroic courage, Not by forcing yourself to plunge into a crowd tomorrow morning, but slowly, with help, with patience, one small step after another. Thousands of people who lived exactly as you do, behind the glass, learned to come out. They did not turn into someone else. They remained themselves, only free. And the first step, the smallest and the largest at once, is to speak with a specialist. A psychologist, a psychotherapist. Someone trained precisely for this, who will not judge you, because they know that behind your withdrawal is not coldness, but a heart that was taught to hide. How to find such a person, I have written in the description below this video. Adrian, the one in our story, is a construction. There is no particular Adrian. But there are right now, as you listen, thousands of people who could bear his name. Wonderful, talented, warm people, full of an inner life the world will never know, if they remain behind the glass. And if you are one of them, I want you to know one single thing. The party you watch from afar would welcome you with open arms, if only you knew it. And you can learn to know it. You are not cold. You are not defective. You are not condemned to solitude. You are simply a person who was taught, once, that it is safer not to be seen. And that lesson can be unlearned. I wish you, with all my heart, to take the first step. See you in the next episode.